an action plan, and then to come up with a accountability schedule so that we're able to accomplish these goals and the goals and some statements. And anytime I do goals, I like to make sure that they're a SMART goal. And on the, I think it's the next slide, after this one, we look at SMART goals. Now, SMART goals just ensure that the goal is specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and it has a time stamp to it, okay? So when I say specific, it means that the goal is direct, detailed, and meaningful. We're going to avoid vague language, and we're going to try to be very concrete in what we want to accomplish with each goal. We want to make sure it's measurable. How can we quantify and track progress? How will we know when we achieve that actual goal? Achievable is something that's realistic, that we can actually implement because we have the tools and the resources to attain it. Relevant, it's going to align with the mission, values, and strategic priorities of the organization. And then the time bound means we're going to set a deadline or a time frame for achieving that result. So the example I have is that we launched a quarterly stakeholder roundtable series by Q2 of 2025 to strengthen regional partnerships and shared project updates. So it's specific, it's measurable, it's achievable, relevant, and we have a time frame for it. And so that's the framework in which we're going to try to establish the goals that we come up with today. It's going to be, when you look at the goal was a broad aspirational statement of what GAEDA wants to achieve. It wants to strengthen regional partnerships. The objective, a specific measurable outcome that supports the goal, and that was to host quarterly stakeholder roundtables by December 2025. And it's concrete in its task, which makes it easy to accomplish. So the framework is goal, objective, and action steps. So we set the goal, then we're going to draft a statement, and then from there, we'll take some action on them, okay? So let's think individually for about 5 minutes. You can write down 5 goal areas. Okay, you can use these, or if there's something else that stood out to you, you can go ahead and do that. And keep in mind those time frames. You can flip to the next slide since you sit over there. Okay, short term, 0 to 3 months, mid-range, 3 to 6 months, long term, 9 to 12 months. So some projects may take a little longer, but that's part of the reason why I started asking in our last session, can this be done in 0 to 3 months? Will it take a little longer? Can it be done in a year? Some may take longer than a year. Asset acquisition, that's going to be an ongoing process. So you can have short-term goals under that one, but you may also have a long-term goal for that one as well. So let's just develop some broad goals. And I know it's after lunch, so if you can't think of anything, you use this list as your cheat sheet, okay? And then we can talk about those and see what similarities we have. Or if you want, like I said, we can just, y'all want to do it as a group? I know y'all tired. Shouldn't have gave y'all no cake till it was over. All right, what's going to be our first goal? I want to go down this list. And maybe what I'll do is I'll write it on this one so we can all see. All right, so our first area we have is redevelopment, the community redevelopment. We have sustainability and we have capital projects. Okay, would the acquisition of that asset be like our short-term goal? Okay, so our category would be community development. And our goal would be to acquire the asset, what's our timeline for the business, for the building acquisition?
That's gonna depend, John, you can tell them that even after we get this, appraisal done, that we still have to go through the bond committee. And that can take, we have to work on that agenda.
Yeah, and I don't know what the current time frame is to get everything through that process. I mean, I would think it's a minimum 3 to 6 months to get it. But
How many?
I don't know that.
3 to 6 months.
Okay, so,
We'll find out that, just to get an idea of the time frame.
And that can take a while.
right, because you have to go, you rely on other people. But within the next 3 months, we'll have the appraisal. What else we said we're gonna do on the motion? A study?
Yeah, just kind of the background of the property, study, appraisal, inspection.
Inspection?
Possible, I guess.
Okay, and we'll put the time frame for those, at 3 to 6 months. And then we'll put the 12 months that it'll be acquired, and that'll help, that way y'all can just keep following up on it. So we'll acquire this 12 months with the short-term goals of appraisal, inspection. Is there anything else that goes into that process?
You had the bond.
Yeah, no, that's all. Yeah. Okay, in thinking 1 to 3 years, is there any other assets that we've had discussions about? Or should we start having discussions about what's next? Are we gonna get this and work through it?
I think that piggybacks your redevelopment,
Mm-hmm.
because all that is, that's a whole process. So redevelopment would mean, redeveloping a street or whatever it is. All that have to come with acquiring property and stuff like that.
So after we do this building, you're asking, are we gonna be working on additional?
Yeah, like, have we had any discussions about what's next?
We have, but it's only been, one-on-one conversations.
Okay, so what I want you to do is we're gonna set up a meeting somewhere within the next 12 months to start those conversations. Because change and planning is an ongoing process, so you can't get so bogged down in this one that you're not thinking about the next one. And so maybe what we'll do is we'll have another, a milestone, I'll call it. So let's say by June 30th, which is halfway, we'll have a planning meeting. And I'm gonna write all this up for you, but that way, you have 6 months to get this off the ground, but then within that first half of next year, you start talking about, what's next on the agenda. Yes.
Question. I know there's some restrictions on as far as the board meeting as, having so many board members. Is that true? In the same place, at the same time discussing something?
Right, that's
Okay.
right, yeah.
So if you, on a project, can that project be set into a committee? Because committees can meet anytime.
No, the committee is still bound by the quorum.
You gotta have that discussion during the meeting.
During the public meetings. And
Right.
the other thing is, because we only have 4 board members right now, we haven't been doing committee meetings because.
You're not big enough, everybody be on the committee. Yeah.
But I mean, we can have a committee of 1, but they still have to call a public meeting.
All right. Okay, we can take that. So, under the community development, redevelopment, asset acquisition area, our short-term goal is to complete the appraisal, study, and inspection, and have the meetings with the bond committee, within the next 3 to 6 months. We're also planning to have another meeting by June 30th, an agenda item to talk about the planning and to provide some, space for some discussions about, the next areas and what's next on the agenda of priorities. Okay? And that's one of those low-hanging fruit because you're already on your way. And that's a low win that you can have. Now, this is something, like I said, as updates are available, that you send out your press releases. You get on the news and the radio stations to let this information be made available, and you start having these conversations in the rooms you're in about what you're doing, okay? So this would be our first one. All right, what's next? I'm gonna put okay.
Partnerships, collaborate.
So this is all going under business attraction and retention. All right, what are some of our short-term goals for this?
Creating the space.
Creating
We
it.
were talking about earlier,
Business
creating
law.
those workshops to help start and create small business, or to help small business learn how to get off the ground.
Bring resources.
Okay. Is it realistic for us to, say that we'll try to identify up to 3 organizations to work with in this area? Because there are other organizations that are providing these types of series and educational workshops. So is it reasonable for us to say that, we would partner with at least, at a max 3 organizations? That's fine. So if you say at a max 3, you got 2.
Would that be like creating a list of resources?
No, she's talking about partnering with, 2 other entities, or 3
Oh,
other
okay,
entities.
okay, gotcha.
To get this
Like
done,
mid-Louisiana.
pull together all our resources.
Or, like you said, if you want to host
Think you do
the
your own?
workshop on understanding the needs of businesses, then you find an organization that can help you put that on.
But
Right.
even if we do our own, we still need something, we need to pull in the resources.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
So, so you can I can identify 2 right now. I don't know about 3.
Well, that's okay, we say
What do we
2
identify?
entities,
organizations that we can work with, partner with, collaborate with.
like Mid-Louisiana, who else?
So I guess what's the benefit of partnering? I guess I'm not understanding.
Because they have resources that enable us to do the workshops
Yeah,
and
we
to
host
put
it
them on.
with somebody.
We
Even like
host it,
small business development center.
right,
And we don't have to tie ourselves down to a number, but I want to make it realistic to where we're actually thinking of how if we set a goal.
Right.
You can exceed the goal, that's awesome. If you say you're gonna do at least 3, you end up getting 10.
It may be like, collaborating with a finance company to show people how to get financing.
Red River.
And even if you, I know, Chase Bank in our area, they come in and do financial literacy workshops for the youth for free, and they provide the resources. You give them the space.
Right.
It's a partnership with GAEDA, but it's for financial literacy.
Like Red River does that. Red River Bank, Louisiana Central does it.
Okay, so we'll partner with, let's just say at least 3 arts to put on education. Is it realistic for us to try to do 1 a quarter?
Is it realistic?
Yeah, for y'all.
It's beyond realistic.
All right, I'm fine with that because I want to make sure it's manageable and I want to make sure it's attainable, like if we can do it, then I'll write it. Okay? So let's say we can do 1 workshop a quarter. And it's tied to, we're using the collaboration and partnership and it's tied to our business. That's for business. retention, attraction, and the arts. Okay, incubator, what are we trying to do with the incubator?
That's something we've been talking about that we had and we no longer have, and trying to reestablish it to, for small businesses to come in and use those resources, or for us to provide a place for them to get started, as well as using the resources that we provide so that they can grow and then get out on their own 2 feet and go from there. We're just a starting catalyst is what the incubator would be. All right.
Right.
All right, so what would be the goal of the incubator for the next year? We need to start having conversations and planning for the relaunching of it? And I think that would be one that we would put like long-term, 9 to 12 months.
Well, yeah, first we gotta get the building.
Right.
Get it, then get the building, remodeled.
So I'll put that greater than 12 months, that's long term. All right. Anything else around our partnerships and collaboration?
I have a question. This confuses me. The idea that we as a community had at one point in time an incubator, and it's still kind of in existence. And this city of Alexandria basically said we don't need it, and so they are kind of eliminating that function. And now this body is, from what I'm hearing, is kind of suggesting we need this concept of an incubator. You know, this speaks to a real big disconnect in our community. When we have these assets and these resources, one organization is getting rid of it, and another organization is saying, we need to take on this responsibility because it's needed and necessary for us to grow small businesses. And we keep seeing these kind of things constantly over and over and over and over again. And at some point in time, we need to have some form of a come to Jesus meeting and say, let's stop the madness. And I'm just curious as to what's going on. You know, there's one saying, hey, get rid of it, one saying, hey, let's bring it on.
Well, I think in using the word incubator, my mother was running that incubator.
Right.
When she passed away, it passed away. And I don't think they had anybody else to step up to the plate to do it. And then also, I think that the building, they were going to try to sell it, but somehow I think the way that they purchased it, they couldn't sell it for what, up to 30 years or something like that, because they would have to pay back some money. Long story short, I think that, again, we talked about some of our threats and some of our weaknesses. I think that them not wanting, another entity not wanting to do it because it doesn't serve a ready, it doesn't serve their agenda. Period. That doesn't mean there's not a need. There's a need, and we see people, we see businesses come in every day, and they're actually going to these private organizations renting out space, and it's causing a hardship for them. We recognize it, we see it, so we can't worry about what they're not doing, but we can certainly start, again, be a catalyst to start it again, to meet those needs.
And you have to realize too, that's one of our strengths, that we don't have to really consider that they don't consider. If we see a need, we can feel it, whether they want to feel it or not. We don't have to go to them and ask, we don't need permission. That's one of the opportunities, one of the strengths that we have. We can do it ourselves. You know, we in other words, we can take the initiative where the opportunity is there to take.
You know, and I guess the other part I'd say about that is that, you know, we see that they don't need, they are we are a majority in the city of Alexandria. And so, you know, it's just bizarre to me that, you know, we don't recognize that and say, it just don't make a lot of sense to me.
Let me talk my mindset a little bit. There's a lot of times we talk about they, we, us, and we kind of soften things a little bit. The incubator program was designed to give people, small businesses, the opportunity to learn and to grow. We've had success related to that in the incubator program. One of them is Turn Construction. The other one is Dempsey Systems. And they both all the certifications, went through all the programs and everything. But the problem is that when they got to a level where they were having certifications, when it came down to actually getting contracts, that became a difficult part. And they were denied contracts, although they went through the process of getting certain certifications. So they had to go beyond the local area to get the contracts they need. Even though there were programs in place that were supposed to help, and that was through, at the time, it was through the city's entity, not through GAEDA or anything else like that. So what I'm seeing here is an opportunity for those same programs pretty much to be parallel in nature, and then actually allowing people to actually have the opportunity to actually be successful in the pattern and education to which the program is designed to be. And my thing is that, yes, what is the limitation of that company that is going through their program? Are they going to be limited on how big they can grow? Or are they going to be allowed to, grow, way beyond and contribute back into the community to where they're at? I put that in the same category like early childhood development. And when they say, they know the aspect of the child starting learning at 3 years old is better for a child than starting learning at 5 years old in kindergarten. So, because that child progresses so much better, so much faster, but who does it really benefit if that child is allowed to grow, start out at early childhood development? And what are they doing now? They're cutting off early childhood development classes because the result they got is not the result is the result they're supposed to be, but not the result of they didn't want it to be, because there were certain categories of people that were at the advantage of it and it brought them about. So what you're doing here is fantastic, and what you're creating is fantastic, and that the continuation of it is something that is good for the community, and I'm just glad to see it, and just understand it's not something that's just going to happen today, and then we just hopefully it continues throughout.
And I think that's the important thing. If we put it on if we set a 12-month timeline to this, then there can be meetings for community interests and stakeholders before we actually determine what that looks like, because we don't have the building yet. But as the incubator, comes to life, then you involve the stakeholders, kind of like we're doing today at the businesses. And I think the feedback you're going to start getting from the businesses at these educational luncheons will drive what that incubator is going to look like, because then they can tell you what they need, whether they're in business or thinking about business. And so we let the stakeholders determine what those services look like. Then it's our job to go and find the opportunities and the resources through our partnerships to provide our businesses with what they need. But now is the time to set it as a priority, and then we follow up and get the ball rolling so that it can be not what we need, but what the businesses in this area need. Make sense?
And in the short term, you're doing your feasibility studies,
Mhm.
you know, understanding what the best practices are. You know, looking at past practices to see how they work, what worked with and what did not work with. Understanding, what your resources, get a good understanding, good relationship on your resources, educating people, for that next step, the next level. If you're gonna do it, you gotta understand, you know, what businesses are needed and will work in central Louisiana.
Right.
You have to understand that.
And there are several other organizations who have a vested interest in making sure that, you know, we accomplish that. So that's when you consider who you can bring in. So what I think I'm hearing is, we can start out with these educational workshops and start using the data, and the information that we're getting from these sessions to start having follow-up meetings regarding this incubator and what it can become by the time the building is acquired. And just like with the previous one, for the sake of ease, I would set a June 30th follow-up on this one as well. Because by June 30th, you should have already had 2 quarterly meetings with the business owners. And, you know, after the presentation, it could be a matter of, okay, tell us what you need. Or it could be a survey, a simple survey that could be done electronically. And you start gathering this information from the participants. And that's what you're going to report on in June. Okay, so we've had 2 sessions. This is what our business owners are saying. This is what they need. This is what we're doing right. This is what they need help with. You know, this is what they desire. And in that way, you know, if we start building something after this, after you get an update on the building, you realize, okay, we'll have the building by January 27th, then you spend second half of the year getting ready and preparing the plans for the incubator to be what you need to be when the building's acquired. Okay, but at least you start having those discussions. If it's a priority, you want to do it, then we can have those discussions. Is there anything else under business development, partnership, collaboration?
Just want to take, and when you look at that, and they're talking about June 30th, you also have to think about that threat that was identified, is the fact of the possible changes of the ordinance also, that could possibly stop, you know, that progress of, you know, what you're talking about doing. Because you may have those changes come about, what's the competition out there related to it. So you have to consider that in your timeline.
Okay, when's the re-election or the next election here?
It's November next year. However, you will have a lot of people, you know, position themselves and stuff like that. You're going to have political conflict that's going to go on that knows about this plan and maybe looking to stop it or doing different things, you know, and positioning and stuff like that. So you have to look at the political atmosphere as a threat to this current plan.
I think that's what Irving Cass was talking about, the difference in the political entities that may not agree,
Right.
you know.
But
I'll
how,
say something blunt, who cares?
I was thinking,
That's what
that's the attitude we have to take.
We don't have to-
However, there
Yeah,
could be
that's
something
what
that
I was saying.
that could stop a
That's what I said.
continuation. So you're saying in November, you're gonna look at it and say, yeah, we're going through with this thing in June, and then come November, things may change. And all that planning and programming and everything, that may change. So there is a consideration, so on that SWOT, which is a continuous thing, that threat is always there. So what can you put in place between now and then that would guarantee that this will be a continuous program?
I think an awareness campaign.
Yeah.
What can you put in place to eliminate the threat? Or
No,
possible
this
guilt?
is, you probably will never eliminate it because it's gonna be there,
Right.
but the more you create awareness, you know, the more likely you are to build consensus.
Right.
And so that's why it's important that at these couple of the first 2 meetings with your business owners, you're talking to them and you're getting buy-in, because what you're doing is amplifying your influence in the people who are gonna be voting on this, okay? In the people who understand the importance of it. You have to continue pushing forward and let it be business as usual, but we have to celebrate our wins. We have to let people know what we're doing. And that's how, you know, you get the awareness out and you get the followers. I'll tell you something I had to learn early in my career. Everybody's not going to be on your side and everybody's not going to be for you. But I've learned to push through and always let everybody know what I'm doing, so it's never a surprise, okay? It's never a surprise, and eventually, you know, it gets to the point where I'm acknowledging the people who are partnering with me and who are coming alongside me to get those wins. And the people who aren't involved at one point or another will start to feel isolated. And they either gonna fall off or they're gonna get on board. Okay? You know, and so taking that attitude of it's business as usual and we have to keep going. And the more people you get to come around that vision, the more support you have, the lower the noise is.
Well, the thing is, you gotta do something.
Yes.
Your work should speak for you.
Yes.
If you're not doing anything, of course they're gonna say something or
Right.
change something, but if you're doing something, your work
Right.
is gonna overshadow
Yeah.
what they're saying.
And that proved not true this last election, because we were doing something. But again, because of personal agendas in this political environment, when they got the votes, they changed everything. Not because we weren't doing anything, because they didn't want what we were doing.
Well, I guess it goes back to, because I'm outside looking in, what were we doing? Or what were y'all doing?
Well, we could only do what we could do, which was maintaining the grant program. As a matter of fact, just our strength in 2025, we were maintaining our audits, sustaining operations to deliver measurable impact despite prior governance challenges, reinforcing GAEDA's credibility and stability. We also we had a strategic retreat to refine goals and assess projects, progress, and engage stakeholders in shaping Alexandria's economic future. We continue to awarding programs through our grant program with organizations still coming. We initiated a full move here without any interruption of the level of services to grantees, partners, of the public. We were involved in the strategic metals complex, which I was going to mention. I would urge this board to re-engage them. The only reason why we did not go through with that because the city asked for an AG opinion, which is just that, an AG's opinion, not binding by law, that GAEDA could not expend money outside the city of Alexandria. I've done some research. I've talked with some of the original people that were instrumental in doing that ordinance. We are able to do that, but all that came to a screeching halt. So we were working. We were in the middle of looking for a building, trying to find, at the same point we're at now, that's what we were doing.
So you were sustaining and maintaining what you already had in place.
And trying to go forward further.
Creating what you're talking about to create. Now you were creating or developing the redevelopment.
I was
We were
talking
in the
about,
process of trying to do that.
I was talking about beyond this, I'm talking about before the headache, I guess. Before the,
Did you hear what
No.
we completed in Masonic Drive?
yeah,
That
but
was
I
major.
guess when I look at it, and forgive me, but I'm the youngest here, I think, but when you look at Economic Development Authority, GAEDA over the years, whether we admit it or not, has underperformed.
It has.
But we can't blame what we've been through to say what we underperformed
I
back in
certainly
the
can,
day.
because if I don't have an administration that wants to do
No,
something,
no.
what we were trying to do,
Back in the
the
day.
family dollar, and we couldn't get the zoning committee to meet, that hinders us. So I certainly can blame them.
And then we do another avenue. So this is why I think this is important, that when we hit the hiccups, because you're gonna hit the hiccups even with this new plan. But do we just say what we can't do, or we go avenues and figure out what we
We
can do?
continue to do what we could do.
We try to figure out what we can do
That's why you have to
to
understand.
overcome those hurdles.
That's why you have
That's
to
right.
understand.
Yeah, I'm going back to this. I'm not saying none of this stuff. I'm just saying,
Well, you asked what have we been doing.
when hurdles come up, you gotta keep persevering. You gotta keep going.
And that's what we
You
do.
gotta find other avenues.
That's why it's important for the community buy-in, branding, related to what you're doing.
Right.
It's so important that even in the political atmosphere, change the political atmosphere, that's gonna sustain through and keep
Well,
pushing.
didn't you see all the
Their brand is
people
gonna
come to our
create
aid
awareness.
because of that awareness and because of that engagement and because of the money that we put into organizations? They came to our, they came to those meetings to have our back. They saw how important GAEDA is. we didn't just stand back and take it. And we also, we were doing the GAEDA Gospel project. We were in the middle of working on a whole lot of things. I do blame them because it didn't have to happen that way, but I'm not mad. I'm not upset, but I know that we continue to do the work of GAEDA. Now, it may have not been something as big as it could have been. We all sat up there at the press conference for strategic retreat. I mean, the strategic metals. The next thing you know, we got an AG opinion because somebody decided that, well, you can't do that work. And I get very passionate about it because I know the work we've done. And the other thing you have to realize, you had 2 staff members. One was sick, one was out, so that left you with 1. We did what we could do. Can we do better? Absolutely. Are we trying to do better? Absolutely. And the other thing is, you haven't seen anything fall from GAEDA as far as operations. We maintain that level of excellence. So we did a whole lot. It takes a whole lot to do that. Even though we're talking about these quarterly meetings, I hope y'all are invested because it's only 4 of you and 2 staff members. It takes a lot of work to put these things together and make sure that we're in compliance with open meetings laws and different things like that. Our monthly meetings alone. So we're still doing, but we can do larger. Underperform? I would say we perform. I would say we underperform. I would say we did what we could with the resources that we had and the partnerships that we had. Louisiana Central was on our side. When they put them out there in the public, they backed away. They stepped away. That's not our fault. That's not GAEDA's fault. Can we re-engage them, keep an open mind? Yes.
All right. I think our next goal, let's look at the organization, GAEDA as a whole, since we're having some of these discussions. Some of the highlights and topics that came up were branding, awareness, and then staffing. Okay? So, what are some things that we want to do and set up some goals around this area? One of the things I recommended was, coming up with a list of all of your PR list for everyone that you can contact with any good news that's coming out about the organization, whether it be the radio, the news stations, the papers, social media. Who are your outlets to get the word out? That's one thing you can do. Come up with your PR list. We'll put that in 0 to 3 months. And that's just everybody who you can actively send your PSAs out to, the places where you can make appearances. And it doesn't always have to be Ms. Angela. The board members can do this as well. Okay? But awareness in terms of where are we going to get the word out? How are we going to be communicating with everyone about what we're doing? In terms of the branding, I think the strategic plan and the priorities report that I'll give to you all, that is helping with determining who we are and what we do. Okay, and then in terms of staffing, there was some discussions around needing someone maybe to oversee economic development or help the office in other ways. What would be your timeline for getting that done?
So I meet with you all the time. Well, we can put it, Dr. Lewis left, but, I still think we could do some small committees. I don't know if y'all are interested.
3 to 6 months? 6 months. All right. I put 0 to 3 for the PR list, because that should be easy to pull. Everybody can send that to you. And then with the branding, we'll come up with the verbiage of who we are, and that's how we'll start communicating with the organization. You know, what else? Is there anything else in terms of priorities for the organization after anything we've talked about today? Is there any additional goals that we need to put in any of those buckets?
I think we need to be involved in a couple of capital projects.
All right, what does that look like?
Not really sure yet. The thing is, we've kind of been, I'm trying to see the best way to say it. We don't want to be muscled into certain projects. We want to reserve the right to choose what projects we want to be involved in, not just made to be in this project because, you know, of politics. We want to choose the projects that we want to be in so that we can choose projects that will benefit our awareness, projects that will benefit our branding, projects that will benefit the impact of cultural change. Not just being a project because somebody wants us to be in a project. We feel we want y'all to be in a project so you can fund it. No, that's not what we want to be in capital projects for. We're not just here to fund. We're not a change person. We want to be involved in things that are going to be impactful and that are going to make a difference. So we have to sit down, I think, and choose what capital projects are coming up or what capital project, like there's one right now, City Councilman Laura Dane is trying to put together a tiny homes project for economic, for lower income housing, where we choose, where I think there's a area where we can develop small, tiny homes for those who need, you know, help getting started. And we can get involved in that as far as helping fund that or helping, you know, with the land or whatever it takes. That's a great project for us to be involved in. Something that'll build our brand. You know, it was asked when they were discussing the Wise and Goring building, and I think I'm the one who asked, well, what does GAEDA get back from that? And I was responded to or replied to by the mayor, well, it's not what GAEDA gets back. And that's not true. It is. GAEDA should get something back. Not, it doesn't have to be as far as finance. It doesn't have to be economic. Like I said, it could be the impact of our brand. We're doing something that's going to put us where we need to be in that position, creating the table. And those are the capital, you know, the capital projects that we need to be a part of. Not just something that they say that we need to be a part of. Okay. Something that we can choose, something that will benefit us in a plethora of ways that will help us be sustainable and so that we can help these other things.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is
the Lee Street corridor, that would be one. The revitalization of the Lee Street corridor, that would be one capital project I would like to see us get involved in. Working with the Mid-Louisiana. Another one could be working with them to help get the grocery store here that we're in desperate need of in that area of town. Working with the Tiny Homes Project with District 1 City Councilman Laura Dane. So there are plenty of projects out there. We just have to look at which ones would be impactful for us to be a part of. Not just something we're directed to do, or something that someone else wants us to do because of their own personal agendas. We don't get involved in projects for personal agendas. We're about Alexandria. We're about Alexandria the Great. We're gonna make that stick.
That's it.
We're gonna make that stick. We are Alexandria the Great.
Okay,
so. That's right, with our own table.
Yes. So I put capital project identification, that can go into the community development, section. And under this, I put, identify opportunities, prioritize mission-driven projects, and report discuss quarterly.
And see, that could be part of our long term,
Right.
you know, but by getting involved in those certain things can also help us with our small wins too.
And keeping it in front of you, so you don't have to meet on this every month, but, you know,
Exactly.
once a quarter, we talk about projects that
Right.
have come up or that we found out about, and then, you know, you're having those discussions.
You agree with that, Mr. Bernard?
Anything, anything else?
And what he was saying about, there's partnerships that are people, organizations out there that are doing, housing programs or, we call them tiny house projects and stuff like that. There are organizations out there already doing that. And partnering with them to do that is great. But you got, the Homeless Coalition that's trying to do something to get people homes. You got Inner City that's doing stuff related to, homes and stuff like that.
And you're still indirectly working with the city administration. You're still indirectly working with the city. You're still indirectly working with the mayor. It's just what we feel is more comfortable for us.
Right.
You know, not something that you're gonna do this. We want you to do this, you're gonna do this.
Well, it's what they said,
Well,
that
you're
you
working.
always create something.
Yeah, and like I said, that's the beautiful thing about GAEDA. We can do what we want.
Well, no, what I mean is we can still create proposals and ideas to take to the city
Right.
and make sure that we keep that open line of well, it's not open line of communication, we try to create a line of communication. We keep trying that, but right now we know that that doesn't exist. So,
I think I'm kind of like Reverend Williams, just as a person outside looking in. What does that actually look like? If you would participate in any of those three programs that you mentioned, when you're branding, what are you going to actually tell the community? What are you doing? Like, I want to know, GAEDA is giving X amount of money to this particular program. GAEDA is doing this, and this. And I think that's what's unclear for somebody that's really not at the table where y'all are. Y'all speak amongst each other, but we need, some people in the community don't really understand what you're actually doing. And I think if you make that clearer, then you'll get that buy-in, and you'll have a lot of people that want to participate with you.
Well,
You have to understand exactly what you're doing.
well, that's what we're doing here. To try to pull that information together, because the other information that we had 20 years ago has been outdated. So we need to reestablish, now that we're out of that mess, we need to reestablish and present that information. That's exactly what we're doing.
And I think even if we just take a high-level overview of some of the things that we talked about and the things that have stood out to me, that's where we're coming to come up with those goals and what that looks like. I love the messaging that, we're creating the table for Alexandria the Great. Those types of statements that are gonna come out, that helps you to communicate who you are. And how are you doing that? We're doing that by providing community development and redevelopment opportunities, by creating partnerships and collaboration to support business attention and retraction. We're doing that by showing up who we are, because we have to know who we are before we can go and tell people about us. And, we're considering and investing in capital projects that support our mission. So, the goals are what's going to drive how we move forward, how we engage, and how we partner. And that's why it's important for us to identify what those priorities are, because then you don't stray from this plan. So if somebody comes in and they are making an offer or they have an opportunity and it's not tied to any of your goals, you don't have to engage with them. But then if you do have somebody who comes in and says, okay, I want to work with you all to provide small business education, then it's like, okay, well, we can plug them into our partnership and collaboration because we have that there. So it really drives how, as an organization, you develop and how you go out and present yourself to others. And so after everything we've done today, that's why we're trying to prioritize what those goals are going to be. Because in a typical strategic plan, organizations will have a plan for 5 years, and after the report is written, nobody touches it again. And that's the failure of strategic planning, is to get the plan and don't do anything with it. That's why I think this is important within these first 12 months, that you set check-in times to follow up on what you're doing, because if you can't do it for a year, what's the point of trying to plan for 5 years? After this first year, next year, this time, we can get together and say, okay, that worked well. Let's try for 2 years. Let's see if we can get some long-term projects on the radar for us to accomplish. But we have to be able to take a year to decide, to define who we are and to get some short-term wins to build the momentum we need to truly start thinking strategically in terms of how long, the longevity of the organization. Are we fine with these? I think that's a good enough start, because everything's kind of spaced out. You won't have too many deadlines too close and back to back. And so what happens now is I'll take everything you said, I'll take all these papers home, and I'll put it in a nice document. And the document will have everything we talked about today, in addition to the goals and some action plans and some tasks. It's important that we don't let it fall off, that we have our follow-ups. And I'm a resource. If anything comes up, y'all need to jump on a call. I jump on a call and get us back on track. But I'll try to give you your timelines and your schedules to make sure that everybody is on task. And board, I'll charge you with keeping this plan and everything we talked about in the front of your mind. So as you're in the community and as you're in these different meetings, and I'll charge you all too, that we talk about the work that we're doing. We find ways to engage others within the community, other stakeholders into this process. Because the only people who are going to change the trajectory of what we look like and how we show up is us right now. Okay? And so when you get the plan, spend some time reviewing it. If I need to come back and get on the Zoom and do a review with you, I'm more than willing to do that. But these next 12 months are going to be crucial in determining how we move forward. And so we have some short-term wins that'll help to build our confidence up, like I said, get your weight up, and then you can get out there and start doing even bigger and better.
Well, I'll take the initiative to stay on point with you at certain intervals to make sure that we're still on point, moving in the right direction.
Right.
And I'll make sure I
That's
get
perfectly fine. And I'm a resource.
As long as you-
My number's on the last page of the packet. That's my personal cell phone number. That way, if anything ever comes up and you need to get in touch with me, you're more than willing and able to do that.
Okay.
And any final questions, comments, concerns? Do y'all have any additional needs at this time? Is there anything that you feel like you haven't asked or you haven't expressed or you need from me before we leave here with some peace about everything we did say? It's a lot of information in a couple of hours. It is. It can be overwhelming, but y'all did good work. Y'all engaged, y'all honest, y'all participated, and I can appreciate that. And I thank y'all so much for this opportunity. I look forward to doing this. This is good work.